Welcome Exiles, I'm back with another one of my builds and I present to you my crit Magma Blaster Bloodmage. All the maps featured in this video are at least tier 15, my budget is around 10 divines, and my written max roll guide will be in the description below as well as pinned in the comments. The premise of this build is to lob loads of projectiles that have nearly a 100% chance to bounce off of walls and scale as much into crit, shocks and elemental damage as we can. The reason for Bloodmage is because of this notable that provides us with even more crit damage based on our life, which means we can scale heavily into stacking life and strength, which makes using melee weapons really easy, and with our overcap health ability we're able to reach upwards of 8,500 health nearly all the time, and it feels really tanky and nice. How this build essentially works is that we use 2 expert Warpicks to scale critical damage as it comes as an implicit, with the modifier of up to 5 base crit chance, which is huge, along with as much physical and elemental damage as we can, and attack speed. We dual wield these because Magma Blast adds additional projectiles to the skill if we are using 2 weapons, and this combined with Scattershot provides a ton of projectiles that are great for clearing as they cover a wide arc in front of us, and with our projectile ricochet they bounce back and double hit enemies and bosses, which scales really well with crit because it gives us 2 chances to crit from just 1 click, providing of course they do bounce back from a wall. And this is why positioning on this build is kind of crucial and a bit of a weakness, but generally it works pretty well. Also, because of the attack speed penalty from using 2 weapons on the skill, along with Scattershot, it means we have to scale as much into attack speed for this to feel decent. For quite some time I actually just used 1 Warpick with the Dance with Death notable for a lot more attack speed, and this felt a little bit better for clearing maps, but it was worse damage when it came to bosses, and as this build's weakness already is bossing, I opted in for more damage from more projectiles from 2 weapons. Another part of this build is utilising 2 heralds because of Coming Calamity, which increases our lightning and fire damage by 50% each if we are using Herald of Thunder and Herald of Fire, which is a lot of damage. Herald of Thunder itself is great damage and we have a 5 link on this, and Herald of Ash is mainly there for the increased fire damage, but the overkill ignites are also helpful for clearing if they crit, which is most of the time. I wanted to scale this build into fire and lightning, the reason being that the skill already is a fire skill and it converts a lot of physical damage into fire, and I wanted to include lightning damage so we can shock and, as I just mentioned, to take advantage of Herald of Thunder. As this is a dex and strength build, all of the things I just talked about synchronize really well nicely, along with having tons of health and evasion, results in a tanky build with great clearing capabilities, pretty good bossing, and very satisfying gameplay. Let me take you through my skill links, starting off with both life and mana remnants. These spawn little globes on the ground which we can pick up to recover both life and mana, and at the same time overcap it. And this is really useful for our sustain. This is how we can sustain everything, and it makes us really tanky because we can double our HP, and that for me results in about 8,500 HP. Then we have our primary damaging ability, which is Molten Blast, which is linked with Martial Tempo for more attack speed, Primal Armament for more weapon elemental damage, Ricochet for another 40% chance for our projectiles to bounce off of walls, and Scattershot for an additional 2 projectiles at the cost of less damage and attack speed. Then our secondary damaging ability is Herald of Thunder, linked with Elemental Focus for more elemental damage at the cost of not applying shocks, but we don't care about Herald of Thunder applying shocks because our Molten Blast does that. Then we have Lightning Infusion for more lightning damage, Innovate for even more lightning damage, and it's also a 3-second buff, and then Conk Effect for less area of effect but more area damage. And I don't really care about area of effect on the Herald because Molten Blast is enough for clearing. I just want the Herald to deal as much damage as it can. Then we have the second Herald, which is Herald of Ash, and it's basically just here for Coming Calamity to give us even more fire damage, and I linked it with Magnified Effect for a bit more AoE, even though it doesn't really matter. Next up, we have our abilities that debuff the enemies and provide us with more damage, starting off with Eye of the Winter, which applies critical weakness on hit, and we have that linked with Unleash, Deceleration for less projectile speed, and Inspiration for less cost. Then we have Lightning Warp, which is our ability to apply lightning exposure on the enemies, so we have that linked, of course, with lightning exposure, along with Strip Away, which increases the effect of the exposure, and Lightning Pen as well. Now, the way we apply Lightning Warp is through Lightning Ball, as this is the only way that we can do it. We throw out a Lightning Ball and then we teleport using Lightning Warp, which then leaves a large area of effect, shocked ground, and that applies the exposure. So naturally we also need Lightning Ball, which I have linked with Arcane Tempo for more attack speed, and Conduction, but this one doesn't really matter at all. Then we have Voltaic Mark, which increases the effect of our shocks on the enemy, and I have that linked with Persistence for more skill effect duration. And then lastly we have Wind Dancer for more evasion, that I have linked with Maim and Blind. Going through my skill tree now, as a witch we start at the top here, however we want to go to the right as much as possible. As you can see, I go all the way down here. So starting off, there's a lot of good things that we can pick up at the start, such as Essence of the Storm for more lightning damage and more chance to shock, Crashing Wave for more damage if we've dealt a crit, and little passive next to it give us even more crit chance, and then Flow State for more skill speed and mana regen. And then up here we have Moment of Truth for more crit damage bonus if we haven't dealt a crit recently, and also for more crit chance, along with these small ones for more crit chance and crit damage bonus. Then coming up here and to the top we get True Strike, more dex and crit chance, for the Jugular, more crit damage bonus and some int, and then Deadly Force for even more damage if we have crit in the past and more crit chance, along with all of these small nodes that provide us with more crit chance and crit damage bonus. Then going down here we pick up some lightning nodes which increase our chance to shock, along with a bit more attack speed for lightning skills, which doesn't really matter because Molten Blast is a fire skill. But then we come up here and pick up more crit chance against shocked enemies and an increased magnitude of the shocks we inflict with critical hits. And then over here we have some projectile nodes, increased projectile damage, and then Kite Runner, 3% increased movement speed, more projectile speed and more projectile damage. Then we pick up our first jewel socket, and for the jewels we basically, for all of them, we want, this is a must have, you need projectiles have a % chance to chain an additional time from terrain, and you need these for all of your sockets if you would like to reach nearly 100%. And then apart from that, you also probably need attack speed on all of your jewels as well for this build to feel pretty decent. And then apart from that, just look for anything that increases your damage, which could be like increased lightning damage or increased attack damage, maybe even lightning pen, just stuff like that. So going down further, we hit this area, which also has a lot of good nodes. We go for Falcon Technique for increased attack speed per 15 dex, which is good because we have a lot of dex. Down here we go for even more projectile damage and Trick Shot, another really important one because it gives us an additional 15% chance for projectiles to bounce off of walls. Then we pick up Proficiency in Dexterity, and then Enhanced Reflexes for more evasion rating and increased dexterity even further. And then these little nodes give us even more evasion rating. And then up here I picked up another jewel socket. And then here is where we pick up Coming Calamity, increases our fire and lightning damage while we are affected by Herald of Ash and Herald of Thunder. Then we have quite a big crit node over here. Heart Stopping, Heart Breaking and Struck Through. Struck Through gives us a base 1% crit chance, which is really good, and then we get crit chance from Heart Stopping and crit damage bonus from Heart Breaking, along with these small nodes that give us even more. Going down further, we pick up Skill Speed over here, along with Acceleration, even more skill speed and a bit more movement speed. And then going down even further, we have another jewel socket, and we have yet another crit node, the small ones giving us more crit chance, and Tainted Strike that gives us even more crit chance. And then lastly, down here, we have more attack speed and Sand in the Eyes, which gives us a chance to blind enemies, a bit more defense, And then we have this big star node over here. Jack of all trades increases our damage per 5 of our lowest attributes, and this actually gives us a lot of damage considering our lowest attribute is intelligence with 125, which is not even that low. And then polymathy, 10% increase attributes, and all these little nodes give us more attributes. The strength gives us more health, dexterity gives us more attack speed, so it all synchronizes really nicely, and that's pretty much the tree. This is my skill tree currently at level 90, and going further, if you play this build and if you level it further, some good things that you could think about picking up is going down here to pick up another dual socket and then escape velocity for more evasion rating and even more movement speed. This node up here that I really wanted to pick up, I just couldn't find the points for it. It's critical exploit, gives us a ton of crit chance. Going up here, you can also pick up another dual socket and pick up even more attack speed with deep trance, gives us 10% reduced cost of skills, which is quite nice. And then possibly maybe the lightning nodes down here, which give us more lightning damage and pen and increased chance to shock, and maybe even going up further, picking up even more chance to shock and increase elemental damage with our attacks. And you could also pick up more evasion and bestial skin for 100% increased evasion from equipped body armor. Generally, I've tried a lot of different things and variations on this tree, and this is just what I ended up on, which works the best for me. If you're planning on playing this build, then feel free to try out different stuff, whatever works for you, and you don't necessarily have to pick everything up in the same order that I did. Lastly then, I just want to show off my gear. So every single slot of gear I bought for 1 divine, apart from the chest, which I bought for 2 divines I think, and this is of course the Invictus Grand Regalia, which helps us stack a lot of life and attributes, which is basically what this build is trying to do already, so this is just a great all-round chest, highly recommend it, although it is not necessary at all, but it is nice. Then going to the weapons, you want as much physical damage and as much elemental damage as you can possibly get on these, because that is where our damage comes from. Then you kind of also need crit chance on it, so that you can reach that sort of 50% crit chance area, and also attack speed, because otherwise it doesn't feel great with slow attacks. So there's quite a lot of things on these weapons that are like necessary. It might be a bit difficult finding the right one, but as I said, both of my Warpicks were just 1 divine, nothing crazy, and it didn't take me that long to find. So this is my first one, it looks like this, and then this is my second one, it looks like that. Moving on to the helmet, you want to make sure you have crit chance on this, and then as much life and evasion as you can get. Then the amulet, you want as much life on it, you need spirit on this as well. I think it's at least like 35 to be able to run all of the skills that we run. You also need crit chance on it for obvious reasons. The rings, you want flat physical and flat lightning damage, along with as much life and res as you can get on it. And that goes for both of the rings. And you want to quality them with attack modifiers. And I forgot to mention, you want to quality the amulet with life modifiers. Then the gloves, you want flat physical and flat lightning damage with attack speed, as much life and res as you can get. The belt, you want as much life and res and strength as you can get. You can get charm slots if you want on it, although I don't think it's necessary. However, I did get this belt which has +2 charm slots, and with that I use a chaos charm because that's the lowest resistance I have, and then a immunity to freeze charm because it's just nice to have, and then an increased rarity of items found charm. Lastly then, for boots, you want 35% increased movement speed, and then as much evasion, life, res you can get on it. You also want to stack as much dexterity and strength on everything you can possibly get it on, and you will need to get intelligence on one piece, whether that's the helmet, the ring, or the amulet, wherever you would like, because Eye of the Winter requires at least 119 int. And that about covers everything. I hope you have enjoyed this video. I would really appreciate it if you would like and subscribe. Feel free to leave comments about anything you like. I try to answer them all. And as always, stay exiled.